For this episode that you're going to hear today, I'm going to share the conversation I had this November with my good friend, Chris Singleton, about his powerful message that love is stronger than hate. I hope you enjoy these powerful words and check out the show notes to learn more. Without further ado, let's take you into the room of last year's Thermostat Cultures Live. Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Thermostat Podcast with Jason Barger. For today's podcast episode, I'm taking you into the room with us at this past fall's event that I host called Thermostat Cultures Live. You can learn more about the event at thermostatcultureslive.com for future hybrid events coming up. Each year, I invite voices and hearts into the room to join me in conversations about what it means to authentically lead in the world today and how do we create compelling cultures that bring out the best in others and are cultures that people want to be a part of. The event attracts leaders from across industries who are passionate about shaping the future cultures within their lives and within their organizations they serve. For this episode that you're going to hear today, I'm going to share the conversation I had this November with my good friend, Chris Singleton, about his powerful message that love is stronger than hate. I hope you enjoy these powerful words and check out the show notes to learn more. Without further ado, let's take you into the room of last year's Thermostat Cultures Live. I'm going to invite up here to come join me a TCL alum and a speaker that was with us a couple years ago, my good friend Chris Singleton. He texted me last year and said, "Hey, Jason, I will be at your event next year." He had such a great experience being a part of this community. The first time when I welcomed him here, that he said, "I want to be back." If you know Chris or you remember Chris, then you already know this. But if you don't know him, then you'll know he's an amazing human. And if we got him here, it'd be our fault if we didn't take advantage of just hearing a couple of things from him and then also opening it up to what are you all hearing? Chris, a former professional baseball player drafted by the Cubs years ago. What he is more known for, even beyond that, is his mother was unfortunately killed in a racially motivated shooting. If you remember the church down in Charleston, South Carolina, Chris lost his mother in that and didn't know at the time that this was going to then become his mission in life. But all of a sudden, when a reporter and people put microphones in front of his face to say, "What is your response to this?" As a young kid, his response was about love and unity and forgiveness and hope. And now travels around the country giving messages of that. And he and I have become good buddies. And it's awesome to have you here, buddy.
Thank you, man. I'm grateful to be here. I'm also, I always feel like I'm really young, so I like to dress nice, right? Yeah. And I heard you
look good, man.
You and Damon up here talking about back in '94, man, doing this. And I was like, I wasn't even born yet, man. I'm like, man, I really am young, right? And so I'm grateful to be back, man. I text you. I said I just came back from Brazil. My family, we split time in Brazil, and that's why my voice is going a little bit because it's summer down there and it's becoming winter over here. And I said, if I'm back in time, I'll be there. And got back a couple of days ago. I text you, I'll be there. So I'm grateful to be hanging out with everybody here today.
It's awesome. I'm wondering, just while we've got you here, and you're going to be hanging out a little bit after lunch too, so we'll get to carry this conversation. But what did you hear this morning that resonated with you, or in all the work that you're doing? What jumped out to you as like, wow, this is what I needed to hear. This is what I heard. This is what it made me think about. anything this morning?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing was about the three catalysts, whether it's people or events that happen in your life. And my first catalyst, I would say, is my high school basketball coach, who didn't look like me, but we had an all-black team, and he said, "Hey, man, Chris, I love all you guys like you're my sons, and I want to be just like this guy." And when I think about when my mother was killed, people ask me, "Man, Chris, your mom was killed by a self-proclaimed white supremacist, man. How did you not hate all white people?" And that's like a valid question. And I say, I know it wasn't everybody because of my high school basketball coach. He loved me. I still sponsor our team today. My wife every year is like, "Dude, why are we still doing this?" Right? I'm like, this guy is my catalyst. So that's one. And then I would say my wife, man, because, after my mom was killed, I was on the ESPN. I did this Today Show. I did all this stuff on TV. And everybody kept saying, "Man, Chris, you were so strong." And I raised my brother and sister at, 19 and 20 after my mother and my father passed away. And everybody kept saying I was so strong. And as I heard Howard talking about, going through some really low moments and tough moments in his life, I think hearing that so much, I used to just believe that I was until I would break down. And when I would break down, my wife was always there and telling me, "Hey, it is okay, man. You had a really, really tough go at this thing called life so far, and you need to let it out." And so my wife is my second catalyst, I would say. And I think my third one is one of my baseball coaches who showed me, he'd been coaching for 40 years since he was 18. And I remember I was like, "Coach, man, I know you don't make any money, but how do you have such a nice house?"
Yeah.
I asked him that. And I think you shouldn't ask that, it's disrespectful. I'm like, "Dude, you're coaching us. You're here every day. You don't have a real job. Dude, how do you have this nice house, man?" Right? And this is what he did to me. Seriously. He's like, "Chris, let me show you how I've been able to coach for 40 years. And he drove me around to some real estate he owned. And, after I started playing baseball, after I started making, a decent living for myself, I started buying homes as well. And so I'd say he's my third catalyst that allowed me to start speaking the way that I do because of the real estate that we own. And then be able to go to Brazil and tell my family. I think those three things are my catalysts. And then one more thing Howard said, I don't know if he's still listening, but what he said when, there was that interaction that happened at Starbucks. And I'm thinking right now, I'm pretty sure I don't know, I've been to Starbucks probably in every state across the country now.
Yeah.
I think you do have to buy something now to go in the bathrooms, right? I don't know if he knows that's the new rule, right? But that's definitely what they do now, right? And so he's saying that, I'm like, they definitely switched it after, right? But as I was hearing him, he was like, "You know what? We owned up to that." And I feel like right now in our, the culture, the world right now is even with the shutdown, everybody's like, "Well, I'm blaming you. I'm blaming you. Is this, is that?" And nobody's really owning up to anything. And I heard him say, "You know what? We owned up. And we said, we're going to be better. We're going to learn. We're going to do the work." And I think right now, accountability is so important. And as leaders, we have to say when we mess up, when we fall short. We talk about our wives. "You know what? I forgot this. I didn't know we had the party this Saturday for this kid. My bad," right? And when you own up, there's empathy there. But when you're like, "Oh, it's, you didn't put it on my calendar or this," and then you're going down the rabbit hole you don't want to be in, right? And so I think accountability is super important, and hearing that from a leader like him inspired me to be more accountable as well.
Well, by the way, it's one of the first conversation that Chris and I ever had when we were connected by a friend that said, "You guys just need to know each other." He didn't know Chris, but he somehow connected us and said, "You guys just need to know each other." And the first conversation we ever had was mostly about family and about navigating this world of speaking and trying to serve and connect people and all of this, but yet how do you also be a dad, and how do you be a husband, and how do you do all those things, and imperfectly, by the way. And but part of this idea around accountability is this terminology and this idea is something that I'm seeing right now across organizations that we need more dialogue around. And in some of the organizations that I work with, we're actively diving into this. But we're talking about it because the way that we've talked about accountability in the past has been, it's a negative term. It has a negative connotation. We don't talk about something until we're going to, quote unquote, hold somebody accountable. Right? And so we won't talk about something, Derek, until there's something happens that is something we didn't want, and then it's our job to hold them accountable. right? But the reality is, and back to the wives and the families, we are more accountable to each other than we are less accountable to each other. And accountability isn't a one-way street that is meant for us only to talk about when somebody doesn't live up to the standard. It's actually, accountability is supposed to be reciprocal, which means it's a two-way street, which means we actually need to get better about pointing out and acknowledging all the ways in which we are positively accountable to one another. All the times where we do what we said we were going to do. We do back it up with action, where we do have each other's back. And in that way, we are actually more accountable to each other than we are less accountable to others. Is that making sense? So this idea of accountability, we see in teams and organizations all the time, is the opportunity is to help retrain and coach ourselves that really accountability isn't just the part of having that courageous conversation when we haven't met standards, although we need to do that, and we need to do that better and well. But it's also about acknowledging and catching all the good things we're already doing that are already anchoring and where we are accountable to the culture we said we were going to build. I'm interested what jumped out to any of you or what has been resonating with you, and we'll just do some kind of back and forth kind of response to this. Jody from my team, if you haven't met Jody, who is wonderful, and you'll see her around. If you haven't met her yet, please do that, because she is terrific and also has done an amazing job with many of the details for today. So please say hello to her if you can. She's got a mic and she'll run around, but I'm interested, what resonated with you so far that you want to hold on to and write down? Or are there any questions that are emerging for you?
I will mention that acknowledging people and acknowledging the good is so important. Even in our work, with whether it's me or Damon or you, as we're traveling around and sharing, right? For me, it's a lot of schools I'll go speak to.
Yeah.
And it's 50,000 students in a year. And I'm hoping that the message is sticking with them. I'm hoping that they, use it in their everyday lives. And sometimes when a parent messages me and says, hey, my kid came home and said, you know what, I'm going to be the person that this guy Chris was talking about at my school. Like, the acknowledgement is so important. Even after we get done sharing, we share our life, our heart, like real stuff. And people go up to Damon and say, man, this meant a lot to me today. This means this or that. Acknowledgement is so important. People are always like, I don't want the recognition. My wife is super introverted. And so, I'm not allowed to, when she's in the room, say my wife is here, stand up. She will kill me if I do that, right?
Sorry, Amy.
But for people to know, that, somebody is acknowledging the work that I'm putting in every single day is important. And people like that. And
we need it.
Yeah, we need it.
Again, even personality-wise, the research, again, would back it up that we need it. That people, whether they admit it or not, or say, hey, I don't, I like to be behind the scenes and I don't need it. That can be true, and yet they still desire appreciation and acknowledgement. And we can be in relationship with people where different people play different roles and on our teams, and yet part of the role in leading in a culture today is finding out, how do the different people on my team want to be appreciated and acknowledged? And creating, again, that reciprocal nature that what we're in relationship together, that's a two-way street, not a one-way street.
That's good.
Come on, anybody something that jumped out to you this morning? Yeah, we got a mic that will. And by the way, virtual folks, you can be putting things in the chat box too, because we'll keep an eye on that as well.
I think what connected, hear yourself, that's on. I think what connected me the most this morning was listening to Nikki talk about the connection between well-being and performance. I'm in HR, and so, that is a huge, relationships are the base of our culture. So I think that, her connecting those and talking about trust and the hope and the development of our staff, that's a huge growth piece for us. It's a huge focus for us. So I thought that was interesting, those stats.
Yeah, we perform better. Which, again, may not seem like this is a dramatic thing to say, but we perform better when we are healthier. And so, again, and by perform, I'm saying this I'm a better husband when I'm healthier. I'm a better father when I'm healthier. And I'm certainly better at my job and whatever it is that I'm trying to accomplish that day. Performance goes up. Allie, yes. Here comes a mic. Thanks, Jodes.
So something that stood out to me that I wrote down immediately was who carries the culture when you're not around? And I think that's a really powerful question if you feel ownership as a caretaker of the culture. And then I think that also begets the question of how do we spread that feeling of ownership, right?
Yep.
That it's not just the folks who are, the leaders at the top of an organizational chart, or it's not just the folks who have the privilege to hold a microphone and lead a workshop, right?
That's right.
That if we are all caretakers and have shared ownership of the culture, how do we ask that question of an entire workforce or of an entire company? Who's carrying the culture when you're not around? And another piece that stood out to me was this focus on hope, right? And how do we pull people out of the idea of it's just a job to feeling hopeful that where they are at is leading to something of purpose, not just for a company, but for themselves. And so those are things that made it into my notebook. I certainly don't have solutions for them, but I wanted to call those out as powerful takeaways for me thus far today.
I love that. That's awesome. And as I know you know, because we've talked about this, is the culture is always happening whether we're in the room or not. And so it's not a question of will it. It is. The question is, and part of the process of culture shaping is if it's shaped by the way we think, act, and interact, then it's that process of trying to create buy-in throughout an organization, fancy term, but cascading those messages that we can create buy-in that, do I really own the culture? And am I empowered to then, and do I buy into what that might be? And the more we feed into that, the more we breathe oxygen into that, the more likely we are that people not only can see it, but they buy into their role in helping to perpetuate it.
I want to go with that too, Ali, because sometimes when we see the result of our work, I feel like whether it's the story of the person that's being impacted by the jobs that we do every single day, sometimes those stories keep us pushing forward in our everyday line of work. And so, for me and my family, we sponsor some, a community down in Guatemala, and we get letters every quarter from the kids that we sponsor. And so that stuff, I show it to my family. I'm like, okay, this stuff is actually doing something, right? I don't want to just be giving and not feeling like you're doing anything. You see the result of your work or the stories of the kids that you impact or whatever it is in your line of work. I know there's some home builders, so whether it's a couple that's retired and it's like you see a video with their grandkids over their house and they're like, man, I'm so glad I'm here. Like those stories keep us pushing forward for hope. So I like that as well.
That's awesome. We've got probably time for about one more or so before we kind of transition to where we're going next. We got two hands. We'll do two more. Here we go. You just brush it off? You're like, no, yeah.
Hi. I was really it hit me when someone said grace always costs more for the person giving it than the person receiving it. Because I think whether it's personally, professionally, or in any facet of your life, sometimes we get stubborn when we think the other person should be extending the grace. But really, if we can humble ourselves, whether it's with our families or with our teams, to realize if it feels like it costs a lot, it's probably going to yield a way bigger result for what we're frustrated we don't have in front of us. And I just thought that was really, really powerful.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's big. And I want to touch on that real quick because, I forgave my mother's killer. That's the whole reason why I started doing the work that I do. And so often I'll ask myself, am I still in that place of forgiveness? Because even with Damon, it's an everyday walk with him and making sure he doesn't, use or do anything. Or even Muhammad, when he got out, it's like an everyday battle, making sure I'm still in this place. And so you could have a coworker that wronged you and you're like, man, oh my gosh, I can't stand this person, right? And then you say, you know what, I want to move forward in my life. I want to forgive them. And there's going to be a time where you have to say, am I still there? And recently I had that moment when his lawyer reached out to me and said, hey, Chris, I want to meet with you. My wife was like, absolutely not, right? And I'm like, you know what, I'm in a good place. Let's see what, she has to say. I want to figure out why she, represents this guy, because she volunteered to do it. And, I heard her reasoning was she thinks the guy that took my mom away is autistic and her son is autistic. And so there was a connection there. And she said, there's no excuses, Chris, but we're talking back and forth. And she asked me, hey, Chris, will you write a letter to the president to hopefully get this guy life in prison without the possibility of parole instead of the death penalty? And I've always wanted him to receive life in prison, not the death penalty, because I have a hope that one day he will say, you know what I did was wrong, and I want to stop anybody else from doing what I did, right? We see it happen at a church in Michigan. We see just terrible things happen to really good people. And so part of me was like, man, I'll do this. But then I thought to myself, this guy has never apologized. And at a certain point, it's like you're giving, and it's like for nothing. And so in my mind, I was like, I can forgive somebody and move forward without being their best friend or championing them, right? Because he's never apologized or said what he did was wrong. And so I think we have to get to a place where grace is great, but don't let it affect you from giving so much that it hurts, And so I think that's a great point that you had. And we got to put ourselves first, because at the end of the day, it's also our families, it's our work that we're doing. And if anything else is detrimental to that, then we got to make sure we come number one.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.